A 2015 study showed that phantom energy drain accounts for 23% of power consumption and nearly a quarter of your total utility bill. And phantom energy drain is not when you are watching TV and have it plugged in. It's when you have different appliances and things plugged in and they're not in use. There's still a very small amount of energy that's being used. And depending on the type of appliance, the type of outlets you have, the wattage, different things like that, it's a higher or lower energy drain. But that's something that a lot of people, myself included, don't really think about, is how much I keep plugged in just for convenience sake when I leave to go to work, or different things like that when I go to bed at night. And I'm certainly not saying that you should unplug your oven and every single thing every night. Like, we have to be realistic here. But phantom energy drain is a real thing, and it really does account for a lot of our utility bill. And I don't think that's something that people consider when they are auditing their electric usage. So that's something to be really cognizant of, I would say. Welcome back to the Money and More podcast. I'm Madison Foster.
And I am Ryan Bowling. It is good to see you. How are you doing today?
It's good to see you. I'm doing okay. I have kind of a hot button topic for us today. I'm a little fired up, so we'll see if that makes it fun. But how are you doing today?
I am doing great. So looking forward to visiting about this topic. It's not something we get into very often in banking, but obviously it's something that affects everyone because everybody has utility bills. So it should make, I think, for some interesting conversations.
Yes, I agree. So basically, we can jump right in. We all want to save money wherever possible. That's part of what we try to help you listeners with on the Money and More podcast, as well as the Money and More blog. And our bills are no exception. So one thing a lot of people don't know is there are some actionable ways that you can save money on your utility bills as well. And so we kind of wanted to talk about that today and leave our listeners with some ways that maybe they can cut costs here and there on their home bills.
So first question then, have you, and obviously this is probably setting you up for what the answer is, but have you gotten a utility bill that maybe you had some sort of shock? You didn't expect it to be as high as it was, or what happened?
Yes. So I have a story with that, and then a different story of what's causing this to be our topic today. I will say, so we talked about in our last episode or two that I do live in an apartment currently, and my apartment is the one that they often use for my side of the complex. I have the water hookup. I don't know how I was the lucky one with that, but so if anyone ever has to connect to it or they have to do like pressure washing, it's mine that it gets hooked up to, which is a whole thing. And they always have to give me like a concession on my rent when they do that so that it offsets the water bill. But one time there was a leak that none of us knew about. And my water bill, I'll just tell you, is pretty inexpensive, both just because I live in an apartment in the area that I live in. And there was a leak going on for weeks, like underground, that no one knew about. So it was about 10 times higher than it was supposed to be. And I almost went into cardiac arrest. So I did have to call my apartment manager. I had to call the water company. I had to have a bunch of people come out and look at it. I was like, I don't know how to make you believe I did not do that many dishes or laundry
to use that amount of water.
I was like, someone has to, and they were like, yeah, that's an insane amount, and that's like unheard of for your area. So they came, they found it was a leak, and then it all got corrected. But that was quite alarming. What about you?
Well, mine would probably also be around water. So I think I've mentioned it before, but my wife and I bought a new house 2 years ago. First time in my life we've had an in-ground sprinkler system. So I was like, well, this is great. I can keep my grass green all year long. Turns out that's expensive to do. So we have, I mean, it is cool to watch it run, but also at the same time, you can't help but think like, man, that's just money shooting out of those sprinklers. So it's a cool system. It's got 6 different zones. I can set timing. I do love to water a few times a week because I do want that sort of green grass look. I'll never have like a golf course lawn or anything. There's just too many weeds in our area, but it is cool. I do enjoy having it, but it does make my water bill probably 3 times higher than it is in the winter time. And then of course you have like a backflow test that has to be performed by a water company. You have to winterize it because we live in an area of the country where those pipes can freeze, and it is a whole other setup and system to deal with. But I do still enjoy it, at least for now. There's still a novelty to having an in-ground sprinkler that just makes me feel like I'm got my act together.
For sure. And if you ever get that tired of it, I've heard of some people that just completely get rid of all their grass and you just put turf, then you don't have to mow it or water it. Really get to that point, just know that there's options for you.
Well, probably the best use of it so far was this summer. It got really hot. And of course, we got a 2-year-old little girl, and she's got cousins that are 3. So uh, we just turned the sprinklers on and let them run through it. And they thought it was probably the coolest thing that they experienced in their short time on Earth.
Sure.
So that was probably worth it.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, before we jump into our topic for saving money on utility bills, thought we might just do super quick rundown on utility companies themselves, because they are probably misconceived just how a utility company operates. So I thought maybe just a little context on what a utility company actually is and does could be helpful. And then we'll talk about, of course, maybe what's important to everybody is how can we actually save money on our utilities. So, and just a little bit of research, which I didn't spend a whole lot of time researching this, but thought it would be important to note utility companies tend to come in 2 different ownership models. So you've got investor-owned utilities that are operated as generally for-profit businesses, but they are very tightly regulated. They're not going to come out like your cell phone companies or things like that. They're regulated far more stringently than that. And then your public or cooperative utilities, which is what we've got mostly here in the Midwest. Those are nonprofit, they're community or member owned. And so they're not out there doing much more than what's required of them for kind of regular maintenance, but they're not out there beholden to shareholders the way that some investor-owned utilities are. And so, of course, the reason they raise rates primarily to do infrastructure upgrades. So as their lines age or they add on new systems, they pay for it by raising rates sometimes. Of course, you've got fuel costs, and those tend to never really go down. But as a commodity, natural gas, coal, renewable sources, that's how all those utility companies pull their power. And then, of course, they send it along transmission lines to us in our homes and apartments. And there are, of course, state public utility commissions that review rate increases. So those things tend to not happen just arbitrarily. They actually go through a review process, and utility companies have to justify with the data. Usually you get notices about public hearings for rate increases. So those things have to be communicated to the people that they affect. And then regulators can help them set what's deemed to be reasonable rate increases. So a lot of times I think you see headlines about things that, people see enormous rate hikes and stuff, but there is typically a process for how those things come about. So utilities, often you see large rate increases, but they do have to justify to some sort of regulatory authority why they're doing them. So it is unfortunate. It happens to all of us. We all get that letter in the mail sometimes that says our rates are going to go up, but just sort of generally speaking, there's been a process and a justification for why it happens. But obviously, when it happens, we as a consumer need to do something on our end to help sort of mitigate that cost increase. And that's what we want to spend most of our time talking about.
So I actually got one of the notices that you were just talking about from my electric company in the mail a couple months ago. The first half of it had information about the public hearings that were being held so that people could gather and kind of talk about if they opposed it, why they could hear the pros and cons and kind of at least get their voice heard, which I appreciated. And then on the other side, it goes into the breakdown. And what was really disappointing and surprising for me to see was that the lower you use, the greater the proposed percentage increase. And so like me, I am pretty conscious of my energy expenditures. I also, like I mentioned, live in an apartment, and so I don't use a ton of electricity. So I am nearly always on the lower end of the range that they provided. And for people on the lower usage end, they were proposing a 39.45% increase every month. So that was no small thing. And with that, it just kind of lit a fire under me of like different ways I could cut costs and kind of help with that. I know I'm probably not gonna fully make up for the nearly 40% increase, but if there's some small things I can do around the house, or I encourage our listeners to do, it's kind of like in my articles about couponing, like little small things like that add up, and small ways to save really do add up over time. So that's why we're here today.
Wow, you are not kidding. That is a substantial increase.
Yes. So do you want to just kind of jump right in onto the ways we found that we can cut some of those costs?
Yeah. So obviously you've done some research. You've written about it. This appears on our OMB Money and More companion blog. But what can people do to help cut some of those utility costs if they're in a boat like yours facing a rate increase, which I assume a lot of people probably are this time of year? What's number one? What's the first thing you can do?
Yes. So this is by no means a comprehensive list, but I just kind of compiled 6 or 7 different things, actionable things that we can all do. So the first one, it kind of seems like the easiest, but it's something a lot of us don't think of, just auditing your energy usage. So really taking inventory of why your electric or your water or your gas is what it is, and kind of what you're using, and if any of it can be cut, should be cut. In doing my research for the article that I wrote on this topic, I found a staggering statistic that I wanted to share with you guys. So a 2015 study showed that phantom energy drain, which we'll talk a little bit more about, accounts for 23% of power consumption and nearly a quarter of your total utility bill. And phantom energy drain is not when you are watching TV and have it plugged in. It's when you have different appliances and things plugged in and they're not in use. There's still a very small amount of energy that's being used. And depending on the type of appliance, the type of outlets you have, the wattage, different things like that, it's a higher or lower energy drain. But that's something that a lot of people, myself included, don't really think about, is how much I keep plugged in just for convenience sake when I leave to go to work, or different things like that when I go to bed at night. And I'm certainly not saying that you should unplug your oven and every single thing every night. Like, we have to be realistic here. But phantom energy drain is a real thing, and it really does account for a lot of our utility bill. And I don't think that's something that people consider when they are auditing their electric usage. So that's something to be really cognizant of, I would say.
Do you know off the top of your head what some of those appliances are that are sort of most likely to have phantom energy drain? What's doing it?
I don't know like what's the most. I kind of read different things throughout my research, and it also depends. Like, not everyone is going to have the same type of things plugged in, or even the same brand can make a difference. Like I said, it's very dependent on the item itself. But a lot of it that I was seeing were electronics, such as like a microwave, a TV, phone charger, laptop chargers staying plugged in were a really big one that I saw. So just things like that.
It's things that have blocks usually, right? Do I remember that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Have you had an energy audit done before? I've thought about it, but I've never gone as far as to actually like pay for a service where someone comes and audits like drafts coming through windows and doors and stuff. I always feel it and I always think about it, and I'm like, man, I should have somebody look at how to fix this, but I've never actually done it.
I have not. I have done an internal version of that, in the sense of kind of going around and feeling if my windows seem sealed, different things like that. I especially did that when I first moved in here and I was walking around an empty apartment. I was able to make sure I couldn't feel a draft or there was no leaks in the ceiling or anything like that. And I do sometimes go around and I'm like, do I really need this plugged in all the time? How much do I actually use this? Like, would it be better to unplug it and plug it back in each time? So I've done that, but no, I've never paid to have one professionally done, but I would be interested to see. And if you ever do have one done, I think we have to come back on here and do an update and see what their findings are. That would be really fascinating.
Yeah, it is on my list of things to do. I probably make it up in my head, but I think it'd be cool if they had some sort of infrared scanner to show you where your cold and hot drafts are, how the air moves around your house.
Yeah.
Feels like the Predator, but I think it could be. I think it could be cool if it existed. I have no idea.
We've come a long way with technology. I'm pretty sure that's like a thing. So
So number 2 on your list, what's the next thing people can do?
number two is one that people are not going to want to hear, and it's easier to say than to do for a lot of people, but to be really intentional and strategic with your thermostat. So what I mean by that is, unfortunately, that means lowering it a few degrees in the winter and raising it a few degrees in the summer, especially when you're not home. Now, the caveat I will say to that is you don't want to completely negate that action by turning it super, super low in the winter when you're not home and then cranking the heat up 15 degrees when you do get home. That's going to kind of defeat the purpose. But if when you're not home in the winter, you're used to keeping it 70, if you can bite the bullet and just keep it like 65, 66 when you're not home, and then just increase it a few degrees when you get home or when you're going to bed or whatever that looks like for you, that really does make a difference, and it does add up. And there's also a lot of like smarter thermostats now where you can even put them on a timer, which takes the manual guesswork out of it or even having to remember it. You can set many thermostats nowadays to a timer where it'll automatically switch to either higher or lower at a certain time during the day. And then if you'd like it to start either warming up or cooling off, 30 minutes before you're set to get home from work, you can set it to do that as well. So that really helps for a lot of people if you do have like a newer model of thermostat and that's something that you're willing to invest in, that takes away from you having to actually manually do it each day, as well as like you don't have to wait till you get home to make it warmer or cooler, which is a drawback for some people.
Yeah, a lot of them nowadays do. They remember your settings and your preferences. They adapt and learn some of your behaviors. I think they're really cool. They've come a long way in thermostats.
Yes. And speaking of things around the house coming a long way, that takes us to number 3, which is upgrading to energy efficient appliances. So that's something that I don't think used to be as prioritized maybe 50 years ago. But now, I mean, you see the logos on like your washer and dryer, energy efficient, and there's lots of different appliances you can get that are energy efficient and that are designed to be that way. So they use less water, they use less electricity, and they are designed for that. So if you see those when you're out and about, first of all, be prepared. Those typically come with a slightly higher price tag, but you kind of have to think, again, like we talked about before, opportunity cost. Is it willing to give up a little bit of extra money now in order to save on your utility bills for the next 15 years or for the life of that appliance? And I think that's something to really consider as well. And with that, one thing we also recommend is if cost is a concern for you, which is a valid one, we have absolutely like ran it into the ground with how many times we've talked about keeping your checking and your different savings and your different buckets and separate accounts. So this is another one that's a great opportunity for people. If you want to have a savings account that's dedicated just to home repair and home appliances, that's an awesome thing that if you can just stick a little bit of money into each paycheck or each month or whatever that looks like, then when it does come time to replace that old washer and you want to get an energy efficient one, you'll already have it there. And it's not something you'll have to budget for because you will have been saving for it for months leading up to it. So you won't have to dip into your emergency fund. You won't have to go to a laundromat for weeks. Like if you have a dedicated savings account for these things, it can make it a lot more bearable when they come up.
Yeah. So a couple things. I can't remember the last time I didn't purchase an energy efficient Energy Star appliance. Like it's something now just that's a part of my, shopping standard. And then 2, I also can't remember a time where I didn't take advantage of a holiday sale. So I think if you're looking for an appliance to help with your utility costs, both things, make it Energy Star and take advantage of those sales. Veterans Day, President's Day, you get some really significant sales that way.
And sometimes you can get a rebate as well, which is awesome. Anytime you can get a rebate, that's something to look for as well. And if you can combine that with like a Black Friday sale, you're in business.
Yes, everybody wins.
Yeah.
All right. What's the next thing people can do?
Next one, well, we talked a lot about electricity, but there are, of course, other utilities that we need to be aware of. So the next one is reducing and being aware of water waste. So one thing that I don't think a lot of people think of, especially in the day and age now that we have dishwashers, which was a magical invention, run full loads. So I know it can be tempting, especially for type A people like myself, to just get dishes done so they're all put away. But if you only have a few plates and bowls in there and there's a lot more room and you're running it more often, that's quite a bit of extra water waste and extra cost that you really don't need to be doing. Assuming you have enough dishware to get you by, there's really not a reason outside of maybe like a mental checklist to run it that frequently. So it's really important to wait until your dishwasher or your sink is full to then use that water instead of just running it like every single night if that's not actually what you need to do. If you have a huge family, that might look different for you. That might be a different process, but if it's not actually full, then it's best not to run your dishwasher. And also, this probably goes without saying, if there is a leaking faucet or a running toilet that you're aware of, that you can maybe hear dripping, you can hear your toilet running even when it's not being flushed, have that looked into. Look at it yourself if you're able, call out a professional plumber. That stuff adds up as well. And water waste really does, like I mentioned in my earlier story, it really does add up quickly when water is just running up the meter. So any way that you can identify of saving on that water waste, it'll also save you from wasting money.
Yeah, and a lot of people probably forget you're not just paying as a utility for your running water, you pay for sewer as well. So everything that goes down the drain also has a cost to it. So that's important to keep in mind as well when you're looking to cut costs.
Correct. Yeah. And another thing, and this one is definitely not a one size fits all. It's going to be really dependent on where you live geographically, what your income is, what the structure of your yard is, but you could consider solar or renewable energy as well, if that makes sense for your household and for your family. So like solar panels, for example, some people they would not be a good fit for solar panels. It would just be a waste of money. So we're certainly not saying just to do it if you can. But if you do live somewhere where you're getting constant sunlight, if you're somewhere in like the Southwest that you get ample sunlight for many hours of the day and you're in like an open area, that's something to consider. They do require a decently large upfront investment most of the time. But if you live in the right area to benefit from it, it can drastically cut costs, especially in the long run. So it's another one of those kind of opportunity costs. You are going to have to pay a lot up front, so just to prepare everyone, but it can potentially save you costs in the long run if you're someone that's a qualified individual to have that. And some utility companies will reward you for that as well. They have sometimes green energy programs, so you can opt into renewable resources without installing anything on your own. Or if you do install it, kind of like we talked about rebates, they'll either give you a rebate or they'll offer you a discount for doing so. And again, that's not all utility companies and that's not everywhere in the United States, but some places do. And if that's something that you think you would be a good candidate for, definitely check into it, because if you can cut costs from it as well as through your utility company, again, a win-win.
Yeah. So I got one more idea to throw out there for you. So whenever my wife and I moved into our house, we decided we wanted to splurge a little bit on window coverings. Like we had always just gone to a local hardware store to buy blinds to put them up. But we decided, no, like this is like a forever home. We want to do it right. We want to spend a little bit more, get something that's going to last. It's going to look great. But we found that there was a energy efficient blind tax credit. So we got energy efficient blinds for like a couple of the bedrooms that we know, we don't need to open them up as much. We just want to really protect them from sun coming in and heating up the room. But we got money back on our taxes from the purchase we made from our blinds. So that was really cool. Saved us, easily half price. You just had to wait a little bit for your taxes to come back, but it made a substantial savings. We got about 50% off because of that.
There you go. That's an awesome tip. Yeah. And another one that I don't think a lot of us think of. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. So I have never had the guts to do it, but it seems like something I think you might do. But have you ever contacted a utility company to try to negotiate your rates or compared utility rates? Is that something you've got experience with?
Well, let me tell you, I do not, but I am about to, because since I got this notice, I am going to learn how to do that. Don't you worry. So I am going to, yeah. We live in an area, it's a little bit small. We've talked about before, we're based in Missouri. So sometimes, like my dad, for example, he lives in a smaller town even than where we live. And there's not always an option. Sometimes it's just like, these are who offer internet in your area, electricity in your area, and that's what you get. And that's tougher, of course, if you don't really have a lot of choice, which is kind of the way it often is in our area. So I don't know how far that will take me, but at least if I don't have another option, I can call the one I currently have and see if they're willing to, I mean, I've told you before, I negotiate my rent when it goes up. So I don't think I'm trying to negotiate this when my electric raises next year, because I will be calling. And it's not, it's more of just the mental block of having to do it, but it's a great, I mean, it's a great thing to do. There's no downside from it, because at worst they say no, and what happens is what you're already prepared to happen. But best case, they hear you out, you're kind of professional when you call, and they're like, okay, like, we'll meet you in the middle, we'll cut you a deal, we'll give you a discount, whatever. So I have not done that yet, but I will keep you updated when I do, because it's coming.
Oh, please report back. Future episode. I got to know what happens here.
Yes. And to that end, as far as negotiating, that's something that's important to do as well. Something I recommend people to do, like even for like their auto insurance, is to audit that as well, and be constantly shopping every time you have a renewal, every like 6 or 12 months or 24 months, you know, if you want to go further, check out other auto insurance rates. The same thing goes for this. If you do have other options as far as utility providers, compare rates online, call them, do your research, see if there is a competitor out there, if they offer a new customer bonus, a new customer offer, if you can get your first 6 months of electricity at a cheaper rate. Again, the worst that can happen is that you stay in the situation you're already in, but it's really important to research what other options might be available to you, especially if you might not even know. And then if you are going to stay with where you already have, then just research your bill, like look carefully at your bill. Don't just pay it and don't think anything of it. Every so often, if you're not doing it monthly, read through the line items on your bill and make sure that there's not some hidden fee that you shouldn't be being charged. Make sure that there's not an error, like your water meter is out there running for 3 weeks. Like, make sure you actually are looking at it and don't just mindlessly pay it, because you might identify some things on there that not only should you not be paying, but you can potentially get a back refund for some months if you were being charged something that you shouldn't have. Then they may do right by you and offer you a credit for those months that you were getting charged something you shouldn't. So it's really important to look carefully over your bills as well.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And, you know, as the commercial goes, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. I mean, it's catchy, but it's also kind of true. That's why it works so well. But all right, go ahead and take us home. Wrap this up for us.
Yes. So there are some good habits that you can work on building as well that really will come sooner than you think if you just start doing them. Turn off lights when you leave a room. Wash your clothes that are able to be in cold water. I do all of my loads of laundry in cold water pretty much, and it honestly makes the fabric last longer, typically preserves color longer, and it'll save you money. Hang dry when possible, if that's an option for you. If you have somewhere, again, where you can put up a clothesline. I live in an apartment and I still sometimes have a line set up on my patio that you're able to. So get creative with it. Do it in your house if you need to. I know someone that hangs up some of their jeans in their garage, and I thought it's weird, but you know what? They're saving money on the dryer. So hang up your clothes, and then close curtains during the warmest parts of the day to reduce cooling costs. If you have thick insulated curtains, or like I have blackout curtains back here, that's an awesome way to keep heat or cool in and heat or cool out. So if you can invest, kind of like you were talking about window coverings earlier, if you can invest in some good curtains as well that are thick and can block out that weather, that's going to be a real cost saver for you also.
Fantastic. Well, I know I got some great takeaways, some things I want to do. Absolutely. Look into getting an energy audit, see where I can save some money, and get through these tougher times as we pay attention to our money and where we're spending it. So got any last words of advice or encouragement?
Yeah, well, I think that's great. First of all, I'm excited to hear about how that goes. But really, the biggest thing I wanted to leave our listeners with is that saving money and cutting on some of these utility costs, I know some of them can seem odd adjustments to make, but they really don't require large lifestyle changes 9 times out of 10. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, small things really add up. And with just a few like easy adjustments that can become a habit in no time, like you can really save a substantial amount of money in the long run. So just like, if nothing else, for our sake, just give it a try for a couple months and just see what happens.
Yeah, no, fantastic. All right.
Well, this has been a fantastic episode. As always, I'm excited to talk to you next month. I have to get out of here to make a phone call to a utility company. So, Ryan, any parting word?
No, I just look forward to you letting us know how that goes. thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Money and More podcast. If you've got an idea for a future topic, be sure to let us know in the comments, like and subscribe, and we will talk to everybody next time. Have a great day, Madison.
Bye. The Money and More podcast is owned by OMB Bank. OMB and its affiliates do not provide legal, tax, or accounting advice. You should consult your legal and/or tax advisors before making any financial decisions.